Chapter 6, 6A, Paisley. It was about a half-day's ride south to the tutelage from our town of Tegerton. Grandfather and Alira arrived early to pick us up on the way. Cadence stayed home with the staff, seeing as it was no trip for an infant. We arrived without incident, though weary and bruised a bit from the bumpy ride. Alira seemed to be distracted inwardly most of the ride. She had apparently still been having bad dreams. I wondered if she felt alone without having me home. The school was located up near the mountains, and it was refreshing to feel the brisk air as we grew closer. It wasn't so much a school as it was a camp. The entryway was arched in iron and read, Sator Tutelage. I remembered Sator from our history classes, the ancient god and father to all gods, in a sense. The symbol of the sun and moon stood above the name. There were training grounds just inside the entrance, where pupils were training in their craft. We passed a small forge where a man stood hammering away at a sword. We tethered the horses at the main building and made our way inside. The dining hall could be seen off to the left, a room just large enough for one large table. A classroom stood to the right, or perhaps it was a library, as there were more books than anything else. 3 rows of small tables sat inside, with 2 chairs to a table. A desk sat at the far end with a lady sitting at it. "Good evening, madam," Grandfather said. She put down her scrolls and stood to greet us. Her skin was tanned from the sun and wrinkled with age. She had to have been almost as old as Grandfather, but her eyes shone with a fiery spirit that lessened the years from her face. Her long blonde hair was tied back in a loose ponytail. She couldn't have been much taller than myself, but was stocky and with a slight girth about her. "Good evening," she replied. "How can I help you?" "My name is Eldridge Ogg, and this is my granddaughter, Paisley Gallons. We are here to inquire about an application to your school," he said, gesturing around the room. "Wonderful. My name is Jera Kincaid. I am headmaster of the tutelage." She walked around the desk and grasped Grandfather's hand. "We have about 8 months until next term, and plenty to accomplish by selection day. This coming year, I will be taking on new students who will stay with me for 10 years. The tutelage is exclusive to only the best, and there will be challenges to undertake to prove their abilities. Only 1 entrant per each element is chosen." "What is your element, Paisley?" she asked, turning toward me. "She has 2 elements, we think," interrupted Fenton with excitement. Grandfather's eyes snapped to him in warning, causing Fenton to go quiet. He stared at the floorboards for a moment before returning to our conversation. "So you are a celestial magus," Jera stated. "Solar or lunar?" "I can control fire and plants, and when I do so, a sun glows from my hand. Does that make me a solar magus?" I asked. "It sure does, Paisley. Solar magus control both fire and earth, or Ignis and Terra as they are called. Let us take a tour around the campus and let you decide if it might be the right fit for you," offered Jera. "This is the classroom where we cover both Magus and Mortalis studies. You will be required to keep up on both as you study here." We continued across the hall to the dining room. This is our dining quarters, or kitchen area. Meals consist of a special diet per pupil that enhances their unique abilities. Jera led us outside, where the students were practicing training. This is our training yard. You will learn to manifest and subdue powers, as well as attacking and blocking. Over here, she indicated to the forge, is where we manufacture implements to harness and channel your elements. Before starting here, you will be challenged to create your first talisman. You may create anything that speaks to you, but bear in mind your elements and what will enhance them as you furnish them. The stables connect to the forge where the animals' quarters are. We walked around to the back of the building, where a long row of rooms could be seen. These are the sleeping quarters where you will be living. Nothing fancy, probably similar to the chambers at an inn. Jera called one of her pupils over to show us his room. It was just as she said, rudimentary quarters with a bed, a chest, a table, and a view looking out at the mountains behind the campus, where a lone building stood. We walked to the end of the rooms. On either end of the quarters area are washrooms, the gentlemen on the left and the ladies on the right, she continued. Lastly, we have our temple. Each pupil will have time to pray to their elemental or celestial god or goddess. This will help you connect with your powers and learn respect for your craft, finished Jera. We walked back to the schoolhouse where Jera shuffled around her shelves for a parchment. She pulled out one and handed it to Grandfather. This is your application form. Please complete that and return it as soon as possible. If selected, you will receive notice by mail along with a course booklet detailing the curriculum and tuition fees. Fees are due each year at the start of the term. There are 10 terms to complete. Upon completion, you will receive your diploma to take with you to your profession of choice. Do you have any questions? Jera asked. Grandfather looked down at the application, skimming it briefly. What is your cost of tuition per term? He asked. 20 gold per term covers tuition, supplies, room, and board. All other expenses would need to be covered by the pupils, such as town shopping excursions, Jera answered. If there are no questions, I must go and see to supper. Thank you, Miss Concade. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for your time and tour of your establishment, Grandfather said as we made our goodbyes. Call me Jera, and it was a pleasure. I wish you all luck on your endeavor, Jera said, as she clasped Grandfather's hand again and strode from the room. The 4 of us headed back to the wagon. We would have to stay at the local inn for the night and head back tomorrow. There was a lot to discuss as we sat around eating dinner at the inn. Grandfather was accepting of the tutelage, but remarked that the tuition costs were steep, nearly twice the cost of what he was paying Miss Annabelle. I would need to find a way to help supplement the costs this summer. After dinner, we headed to our rooms for a well-needed rest. Fenton roomed with Grandfather, while Alira and I shared another room. We settled in for the night early, ready for our trip back home.